that James Comey has more on Loretta Lynch than that 45-minute tarmac conversation with President Clinton.
That was the beginning of it. To add to that, there's rumors that evidently that James Comey may have gotten hold of a memo to the DNC from Loretta Lynch that said, don't worry, there won't be any prosecution of Hillary Clinton. If that indeed is the contents of that memo, it was given to lawmakers behind closed doors.
So there was a second meeting where he went into Loretta Lynch's office as FBI director and said, hey, I got a problem with the way you met Bill Clinton out on the tarmac. It creates a conflict of interest. And then, so they had some exchanges, and then he said, and by the way, take a look at this. And this is what you were talking about. It was a sensitive document that she did not know that the FBI had. And according to Circa, it was between two political figures that suggested that a Lynch was in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Here's Sarah Carter from Circa talking about this bombshell.
We know that lawmakers were briefed on a meeting that Director Comey, former Director Comey, had with Loretta Lynch, where he confronted her, not just about the tarmac, but about a sensitive piece of communication. It was a piece of communication between two political figures that basically alluded to the fact that Loretta Lynch was going to put the kibosh on any type of investigation against Hillary Clinton. And when he confronted her with that piece of evidence, she basically stared at him, and there was a long period, as he described it to lawmakers, a long period of steely silence. I thought that was really telling. Steely silence. And then she looked up at him, and she asked him if there was nothing more he needed to say, then he should turn around and leave the office.
All right, so if all this is true, let's get this straight. In the first meeting with Comey, Lynch says, no investigation. No, don't investigate Hillary Clinton.
Don't call it that.
Don't call it that. Let's call it a matter. And then she, in this document, in this secret document, she said to a political figure, allegedly, she says, let's put the kibosh on this. Well, James Comey doesn't like the way this is happening, and that's why last summer he came forward with that press conference and he talked about Hillary Clinton and her email, and then he decided at the very end he was not going to indict her.
Well, yeah, he says, I'm not going to recommend it. No prosecutor would take the case. Let the debate begin. So the question is, why go behind closed doors if all this stuff's going to leak out anyway? We heard talk about this back over the summer, that there's something else there, that it was only going to give in a closed session, not an open session, but it would have justified Comey possibly taking the befuddling action that had both sides scratching their head. Judge Napolitano says, I have an idea. Have the current Attorney General do something he would be obligated to do by his job description. Investigate what happened with the old Attorney General and Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton also was running for president, and this would have affected the election that she lost. Listen.
Jim Comey, it now appears, sort of big-footed the Attorney General, just went right around her. He was convinced that she, as the chief federal law enforcement officer of the land, was doing the bidding of the Democratic National Committee and Hillary and Bill Clinton. If Mrs. Lynch, Attorney General Lynch, made law enforcement decisions for political purposes, that's called misconduct in office, and Jeff Sessions, the present Justice Department, should investigate her for that.
All right, so if we're going to have a fit over the Russia collusion, we should have a fit over this. It's the same thing.
Sure. I mean, Washington, D.C. is afire with the suggestion that Russia influenced our election. And yet you look at this, and it sounds like Jim Comey is saying, hey, I got news for you. The past administration influenced the past presidential election. Forget about Russia. And we don't know, you know, collusion, we don't know that. But it sure looks like, according to the former FBI director, there was collusion between the Department of Justice in the form of the Attorney General and the Hillary Clinton campaign. That is, as I depicted earlier, a bombshell.
Right. We'll see if we have another Comey day on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, it's Jillian time here on our second floor. Hey, Jillian.
Good morning, guys. Good morning to you at home as well. We do have an update on a story that we've been following. We brought it to you an hour ago, and this is breaking just moments ago. Authorities arresting a suspect in connection with the shooting death of a police officer. Lieutenant Patrick Weatherford was responding to a call near Little Rock, Arkansas last night when he was ambushed. Lieutenant Weatherford was a 15-year veteran and a father, leaving behind his wife and young son. Lieutenant Weatherford, just 41 years old. New video of Dennis Rodman touching down in North Korea to meet with Kim Jong-un. You can see it right there. Now, the purpose of his latest visit still unclear. Rodman only telling reporters he's, quote, just trying to open a door. This as the erratic North Korean dictator responds to President Trump's Twitter taunts by threatening to take out New York. The president in the tweets warning North Korea after several missile launches this year. President Trump's border order battle now gearing up for a Supreme Court showdown after another legal setback. A federal appeals court ruling it violates the Constitution by targeting Muslims. But the White House optimistic the Supreme Court will overturn the ruling. And moments ago, President Trump reacting on Twitter saying, quote, well, as predicted, the Ninth Circuit did it again, ruled against the travel ban at such a dangerous time in the history of our country. And the Golden State Warriors refusing to repeat history, avenging last year's loss with a victory in the NBA Finals. Take a look.
There it is, redemption for Golden State. One of the great playoff runs of all time is complete.
Kevin Durant lifting the Warriors to a 129-120 victory over LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was Game 5. And we want to show you this. Take a look at this moment caught on camera. Another piece of championship memorabilia nearly stolen. You remember, just like at the Super Bowl. Well, a fan busted, taking the hat right off Steph Curry's head as he left the arena. Curry not happy. He did get the hat back, but I don't know if you guys remember last year, I think it was, Steph Curry's mouth guard went for like a couple $1,000s on the internet. People want any bit of Steph Curry they can get.
Ooh, a mouth guard?
Yes, that's a true story.
It would have his DNA on it.
Yes.
Interesting.
It would. I wasn't thinking about that.
Gross. All right.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you. All right, coming up on this Tuesday, the president's portrait hangs in government buildings all across the country, but no longer in one town hall. The outrage there boiling over this morning. We got details.
And Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is on deck, plus HUD Secretary Ben Carson and Laura Ingraham. Look at their times and look at their faces.
I'm setting my watch.
Visiting one of the great examples of skill-based learning and skills-based education, a technical school in Wisconsin, which we're very excited about, to talk about the skills gap and to really highlight the fact that there is a viable path other than a four-year college experience. So really investing in vocational education, skill-based training.
Wow, today President Trump and Ivanka heading to Wisconsin. That was Ivanka yesterday on our show, touring a technical training college as part of the White House's push for jobs. There are jobs. Do we have the skills? Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker will be meeting with the president and his daughter and then having a round table. That'll be all happening today. Governor, what's the message that you and the president want to relay today?
Well, we've got jobs, and we just need to have people with the skills and the qualifications and the education they need to fill them. This morning, just looking at our state website, jobcenterwisconsin.com, we've got 96,901 jobs just listed on that one website alone. And so I think Ivanka was right yesterday when she said, all across America, we certainly here in Wisconsin, we've got jobs. We just need to connect people to the skills and the education they need to fill those jobs.
I think when you took over, unemployment in Wisconsin was around 8%. Now it's about 3%. So people watching at home who are lucky enough to have jobs and occupations and careers they like are wondering what the problem is. What happened between the skills needed and the workforce? Where did the detachment begin?
Well, there's a big disconnect, particularly in the area of manufacturing, which is why their focus on apprenticeships and technical education is so important. You're right. We're down to near record lows in terms of unemployment. The percentage of people working is one of the highest in the nation. We're in the top 10. And overall, we have more people employed in the state of Wisconsin than we've ever had in our state's history. But now, in manufacturing, we need apprenticeships. Our youth apprenticeships have more than doubled. And we've got adult apprenticeships continuing to grow. We've got technical education programs. We're going to show part of that off to the President, the Secretary of Labor, and to Ivanka Trump, who's going to join with us. And then we're going to hear from a roundtable of chief executive officers from some of the nation's largest companies that are based right here in the state about what more can be done. And I really got to hand it to the president. I asked him about this with all the other governors back in February, asked him to make this a priority. That's exactly what they're doing this week. And we're thrilled that one of those key stops is here in Wisconsin.
Well, a lot of those working class jobs are those people that want to put them into office and help them win in Wisconsin. You said the problem, according to one senior administration administration official. The problem is not money. There are 31 workforce programs spread across 14 different states. It's what type of programs they are. And I'll give you an example of the problem. It might be in education. We got an email during the show about this, about school. I taught welding at my local high school for years. They got rid of my program and put in stage lighting for theater. Now, that might be fine, but that's niche. One is broad, correct?
Yeah, that's a huge change in our state. We've opened the door to what we call dual enrollment. We just put more resources into early college credit to help with technical education in our technical colleges, one of which we're going to be at today, Waukesha County Technical College, who's got a great dual enrollment program. But you're right, it's just a change of the mindset. We've doubled the number of fab labs. When I talked to the president in February about this, it wasn't just using the bully pulpit, for which he's got the biggest bully pulpit in the world. It was looking at all these workforce investment programs, even welfare reform, and saying giving more power to the states allows to put a greater emphasis on the dignity that comes from hard work. And when it comes to education and higher education, allow us to streamline those programs, meet the needs that we have in our given states, not a one-size-fits-all approach from Washington.
And we only have 20 seconds left, but Governor, lots from parents. Parents used to be embarrassed. Oh, my kid has to go to college or I'm a failure. That's just not the case.
No, manufacturing jobs in our state pay 24% more than the typical job. They're much more likely to have benefits, and they have a longer retention rate. There's good careers, not just jobs there, that can take care of someone and their family for years to come.
Governor, have a great day today with your former rival, President Trump, in Wisconsin, and now you guys are tight. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, a reason to never pop the question in front of a crowd. Plus, what does the mainstream media have wrong about Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the man who replaced him as Senator? Senator Luther Strange is live.
All right, we got Laura Ingraham coming up, top of the hour, and Ben Carson in 5 minutes. It's 7:24 now here in New York City. We've got some quick headlines for you right now. Outrage boiling over after a mayor removes the president's portrait from the town hall, replacing this photo with one of a renowned Native American warrior. Jackson, Wyoming Mayor Pete Muldoon defending his decision, saying he isn't required to display signs of respect and that honoring President Trump means the city is taking sides. The county commissioner is calling the move totally disrespectful. And a second chance to graduate for an Army Reserve medic days after a uniform dispute kept him from walking with his classmates. Hundreds showing up to the ceremony held just for Private First Class Harlan Fletcher, the principal apologizing and personally handing him his diploma. The school district says they plan to revise the dress code policy. All right, Ainsley, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Well, just hours from now, Attorney General Jeff Sessions will testify before the Senate Intel Committee over Russia's interference in the 2016 election. The Justice Department says Sessions requested an open session so the American people could hear the truth directly from his mouth. Will this help Sessions cut through the media spin? Joining us now is the man who replaced Jeff Sessions in Congress, Republican Alabama Senator Luther Strange. Good morning to you, Senator. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So tell the folks at home who don't know Jeff Sessions what he's like as a person.
Well, I've had the honor and privilege of knowing Jeff for over 25 years. He's been a dear friend and a mentor, and there's no finer person in public service than Jeff Sessions. Literally an Eagle Scout from a young age, and he's conducted himself with the greatest integrity of any public official I've ever met. So America is very fortunate to have Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, and I expect him to acquit himself very well this afternoon.
All right, well, Senator, if you look at the headlines, they paint a different picture than what you're describing of the Attorney General. The Huffington Post said in 2016 that he was deemed too racist to be a federal judge. He'll now be Trump's Attorney General. Look at that headline there. Then we have a few others that we want to put up. Slate headline in 2017 says Jeff Sessions' denials are incomplete and unconvincing. You have MSNBC, Attorney General Jeff Sessions can't shake the Russia controversy. New York Times headline, Trump grows discontented with Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And then Slate says, what does the FBI have on Jeff Sessions? So does the media have it wrong?
Absolutely, the media has it wrong, and I think this is a continuation of a strategy that's been employed since Jeff's confirmation hearings. If you recall, it wasn't just a hearing about his views on the rule of law and his conservative record. It was really a personal attack on Jeff Sessions, and I think the point of all that was to delegitimize not only Jeff Sessions, who's one of the finest people in public service, but also to delegitimize President Trump and his agenda, because we're not talking about the things that I care about, the people of Alabama and the country care about. Repealing and replacing Obamacare, the president's trip to Wisconsin today, which is critically important in employment, tax reform. There's so many things the American people voted for and are expecting us to do. This, to me, is a huge distraction from that mission. Having said that, I'm glad Jeff's testifying today. He will acquit himself very well. He'll answer the questions. But it's time to move on to the things that people care about.
A lot of people agree with you. He's testifying in public because he wants all of us to hear from his mouth the truth that he says is the truth. What do you think about that? What does it say about his character if he wants to do that?
Well, it says everything about his character. He's not interested in backroom testimony or testimony in private, even if that were an option for him, because he is about telling the truth. He wants the American people to hear it. And more importantly, I think it takes out the media that you referenced, the liberal media for sure, and interpreting what he might have said. Now people get to hear it directly, and I think they'll be very impressed.
Have you talked to him? Do you know what he's planning on saying today?
I have an idea about what he's going to say, but my only conversations with Jeff have been ones of encouragement, thanking him for taking on a very tough job. And because he does believe in the rule of law and enforcing our laws, unlike the previous administration, we've seen a decrease in the illegal border crossings, more respect for the rule of law, which is great for our country.
All right, we'll be watching Your Friend today at 2:30. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Coming up, advertisers fleeing the New York production of Julius Caesar after it depicts the killing of President Trump. But CNN's parent company is sticking to its sponsorship. Rob Schmidt has the details just ahead. Plus, HUD Secretary Ben Carson just attended his first cabinet meeting with President Trump. So how did it go? Secretary Carson joins us on the Curvy Couch next. Come on in.
Has there been a president, with few exceptions, in the case of FDR, he had a major depression to handle, who's passed more legislation, who's done more things than what we've done? Between the executive orders and the job-killing regulations that have been terminated, 700,000 jobs have been created in a very short period of time since the election. If we would have said that almost $4 trillion in the stock markets has been created, everybody would have laughed at us. They would have said, oh, that's ridiculous. But that's what it is.
Mr. President, it's a privilege to serve the students of this country.
We are engaged with our allies to ensure that they know where our common interests lie, what our expectations are.
It's an honor to represent the men and women of the Department of Defense. And we are grateful for the sacrifices our people are making in order to strengthen our military.
It's an incredible privilege to lead the men and women who are providing intelligence so that we can do the national security mission. And in the finest tradition to say, I'm not going to say a damn thing in front of the media.
And you saw a guy,
Ben Carson will.
Yeah, you saw a guy leaning in there to look at Mike Pompeo eye to eye, and it was Dr. Ben Carson, now HUD Secretary. Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
Very good to be back.
What was the first cabinet meeting like?
It was wonderful. You know, we talked about how we're going to get the American people working again and bring confidence back to people. And the nice thing about this particular cabinet, we have a lot of people here who know how to do things, you know, operators. And you bring that business savvy in. You start doing things that make sense and based on evidence and not on ideology.
Sure.
And you'll see a lot of things happening. We're already seeing, you know, tremendous savings at HUD.
In what way?
Just in terms of how we're using the dollars and getting much more bang for the buck. And what we're doing is we've brought in a COO, a Chief Operating Officer. We're nominating a CFO, a CIO, so we can take the big, broader view of things, fix things on a holistic manner rather than just a little spot here and a little spot there.
Sure. But, Dr. Carson, you know that as you are trying to help the president pass his agenda, there are all those people in Washington, in the swamp. They want to talk about Russia, and they want to talk about collusion, and they want to make sure that you guys don't get anything done.
Well, you know, they can try, but You know, there are some of us who are pretty laser focused on what we're doing. It's sort of like when you're in an operating room. It doesn't matter what's going on out there. You know, you're dealing with that particular situation. And the nice thing is the cabinet is working across silos. So, you know,
what does that mean?
It means that this department is working with this department. In the past, you know, we've had to create interagency councils, and some of them have been very helpful. That's not nearly as necessary now because we all know each other. We all work together on a regular basis.
I loved seeing the cameras in the room. You felt like a fly on the wall, and I like the transparency because the voters can see what's happening behind closed doors. I was a little shocked that we're, what, 5 months into the presidency, and this is the first cabinet meeting. Is that because the Democrats were holding up the confirmations?
There has been some stonewalling. In a way, it may not be all bad in my situation, because since I don't have my assistant secretary of this, and this, I had to learn all that stuff myself.
Yeah,
which is helpful, actually, to gather all that information and to be able to process it, particularly when it comes to trying to design new and different methods of getting things done, because we're not satisfied just putting people in a dwelling. We need to develop the American people.
When the president went with you back to your hometown and you saw what it was like for you growing up, I think he was moved by it, and I think that's part of the reason why you're in this position. You have a lot of autonomy, but if the president can't produce for the inner city, that would be a big promise not delivered. What are you doing?
We are going to produce. There's no question about that. There are a number of things that we're doing. First of all, creating much easier methods of public-private partnerships, because the money is not in the government. The money is in the private sector, but you have to create win-win situations. You look at things like the RAD program, the Rental Assistance Demonstration, where we're leveraging dollars 19 to 1. That's going to make a big difference. We're looking at, you know, communities. So it doesn't do any good to build a big project without having health care, without having appropriate types of education, and most importantly, job creation. Like Section 3, it requires that if you're getting federal funding, that you hire the local people. But there's the skills gap. And that's what they always say, well, we don't have the people with the skills. You have a brain, though, which means you know a year ahead of time or 2 years ahead of time that you're doing that. Train the people then so that now you have the skills. That's something that we have to get back to. Teaching people basic skills. I used to know that when I was in high school. I knew how to operate a drill press and a lathe and build an electric motor.
Not anymore.
You've talked about operating, you've talked about the brain, you are a neurosurgeon, so let's talk about Obamacare. The president and the vice president are going to meet with 13 Republican senators today to talk about how they can pass this bill through, how they can repeal and replace. What needs to be done, and are we going to see this done in the next year or so?
I'm very hopeful that they're going to get it done and recognize that the system that we have in place right now, maybe people meant well. You know, I don't like to sit around and denigrate people. But the fact of the matter is we have millions of people who are losing care, who essentially don't have care because their premiums are so high, the deductibles are so high, it's like not even having insurance. So we've got to get back, take it out of the political realm. We have the ability to fix this.
Sure do.
June is
June
is home ownership month, and you're going to be ringing the closing bell this afternoon. What's the message?
Actually, I rang the bell yesterday, and the message was home ownership is one of the key factors in the financial foundation of this country. It's the primary mechanism whereby families accumulate wealth. The average net worth of families with a home is $200,000. Renters is $5,000. Huge difference. We need to start changing that paradigm. We have to have programs when we do have people who are renters that will lead them to a path of home ownership.
But they got to be able to afford it, because last time we got ourselves in a lot of trouble.
Exactly. You're not doing anybody any favors. You put them in a home they can't afford. They lose their home, they lose their credit, and they lose their future opportunities.
So you've got $400 billion out there that is available for people to make that all-American dream come true, right?
400 in one program, 500 billion in another program. So yes, we have a lot of mechanisms.
How do the folks who are watching right now, how do they look at that as being a resource that they might use?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because all they need to do is go to the HUD website, hub.com, and it will tell you about all the different programs, and there are multiple ways for people to get this information. There are 2,100 counseling organizations throughout the country.
Wow.
We're working with the counselors to make sure that they give the people the appropriate information.
Right. And you had some criticism for saying that success is a mindset, that poverty is a mindset. Do you back off that comment?
Not at all. You know, what I said is it's partly a process of how you think. And I know that from experience. I knew there was a time when I thought I was stupid. I didn't think that, you know, my destiny was in my own hands. I started reading. I started reading everything. My whole world changed. I have a different view of things now. When people tell me something can't be done, I just say, well, maybe you can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think that way anymore.
You worked so hard, knowing your background, single mom, several kids, right? She worked so hard to get you out of housing the government was paying for,
Right.
and you became a neurosurgeon, and then you're ringing the bell, and now you're the HUD secretary.
Right.
So what's your message to the people out there that are having a hard time and they want to get a leg up?
Well, there are a couple of messages. Number one, the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you.
Yep.
Nobody else. And the other one is, we're all in the same boat. And if part of the boat sinks, the rest of it's going down too. So we need to care about each other, stop allowing ourselves to be manipulated by those people who are trying to drive wedges so that they can get their agenda through. We have an agenda as Americans, and that is liberty and justice for all.
There you go.
Right.
All right, Dr. Ben Carson, thank you very much for making a couch call today.
Beautiful studio. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. All right, meanwhile, coming up straight ahead.
Democrats are looking for a new leader of their party, and this could be their man.
The current model and the current strategy of the Democratic Party is an absolute failure.
Wait, he's a socialist, isn't he? But liberals want to draft Bernie Sanders and form a new party. Is that a good idea? We're going to have a debate straight ahead.
He's not even technically a Democrat. Plus, advertisers fleeing the New York production of Julius Caesar after it depicts the killing of President Trump. But CNN's parent company sticking to its sponsorship. Rob Schmidt is here to try to make sense of it.
To Fox and Friends on this Tuesday morning, some quick headlines for you. Attorney General Jeff Sessions isn't the only one in the hot seat today. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is also set to testify before lawmakers. It's the first in a series of 4 hearings this week, expected to cover President Trump's budget, foreign affairs, and the alleged links between the Trump administration and Russia. Secretary Tillerson has not testified publicly since his confirmation in January. All right, you got to see this story. This guy strikes out big time. His marriage proposal taking a turn for the worst. Get this. The proposal, as you can see, is on display in front of thousands of fans at a minor league baseball game in South Carolina. The woman doesn't only say no, she kisses the guy on the cheek and takes off while grabbing her purse, leaving him there just on his knees by himself. That is very tragic and something that he is never, ever going to forget, guys.
And now we're showing everybody.
Yep,
All right,
everyone
Julian,
knows.
Thank you.
All right, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks, Jillian. There's growing pressure on sponsors supporting a disgusting play in New York City.
It violently shows the assassination of what appears to be President Trump.
Rob Schmidt joins us right now with who's in and who's out of sponsoring this controversial performance.
Yeah, and that is the big question, is how many more sponsors will stop funding the Shakespeare in the Park interpretation of Julius Caesar, depicting the assassination of what appears to be President Trump. Delta, Bank of America, both donate hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have dropped their support. A more tempered response by American Express, which will continue to support the program, but not this particular play. The New York Times and CNN's parent company, Time Warner, is still on board. In fact, CNN anchor Fareed Zakaria openly tweeting praise, saying if you're in NYC, go see Julius Caesar free in Central Park, brilliantly interpreted for the Trump era, a masterpiece, he said. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city will continue to fund the program, saying, quote, I think it's a very slippery slope and a very dangerous situation in a democracy in the cultural to interfere in the cultural process. There's that quote there. The theater company now saying the controversy was expected and the performance in no way advocates violence toward anyone. This comes just a couple of weeks after comedian Kathy Griffin posed for a photo holding a prop right here of the president's bloody head, a move that has pretty much at this point destroyed her career. Shakespeare in the Park has provided free public theater in New York City for about 60 years now and has seen a number of Hollywood A-listers perform. But this one, of course, has inspired a lot of controversy. So basically, you've seen some sponsors drop out. Amex kind of saying, we're not going to sponsor this one. We don't like this play. Right. We're still going to support the program. It is a good program. I think a lot of people think they've gone way too far on this end.
And a lot of banks get included queasy. So then when these banks drop out, people that love the play or hate Trump say, okay, now I'm not going to bank with you because you boycotted, because you bailed out of this play.
And everything is political. Everything is political.
Thanks, Shakespeare. Appreciate it.
I've seen a production there, and of course they did make it political.
Right.
Some people in the audience were cracking up about it. Some people were not. But there was no assassination of the president. There was no beheading of the president.
It's a liberal town we live in. I mean, look at our mayor. So,
Hey, if you have to see a play, go indoors. Right?
Sure.
Let's just go indoors.
Cats. It was better than Cats.
Absolutely.
All right, Rob Schmidt, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, still ahead.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, you've heard from the student Trump supporters at the center of the yearbook controversy, right? Listen.
It is a violation of mine and other people's First Amendment rights, and that's wrong.
This morning, the Photoshopper has been unmasked.
Look at that picture. They took that. That's unbelievable.
Plus,
Democrats are looking for a new leader, and this could be their man.
Bird.
Current model and the current strategy of the Democratic Party is an absolute failure.
Liberals want to draft socialist Bernie Sanders to form a new party. Will that actually work? We're going to debate it next.
Isn't it funny?